Okay, you guys, let's talk about nurture. Nurture. So last time we talked about nature versus nurture. I told you guys I would update you a little bit um, uh, about why I made the choices I made with Quest, and I told you a lot of it had to do with nature and nurture and how I look at those things. So last time we talked about nature, and as you recall from that video, what I believe is that while I can't tell you from looking at litter of puppies, when I look at and I'm individually assessing, and I believe in assessments, but not quite the way some people think they can go. I'm not going to say this puppy is good for this sport or that sport. That's really a you decision. I can tell whether they're bold or shy, or whether they're independent or dependent or a blend, which is most people's super dog right there. I know myself, and I know that I'm looking for a puppy that is super independent, super bold, kind of the psycho crazy puppy of the litter. I'm the one everybody thinks they want, but they don't really, because once they get that bold puppy, and that puppy hits about 8 months or a year, what was cute at 6 weeks, at 7 weeks, at 8 weeks when we're doing these assessments is not cute there. And if you're not prepared for it, then that's a problem. So that's part of why I do like puppy testing. But for me, it's not, I think so many people they're all into doing the puppy testing, and then what? What do they do with it? They just go out there and they do whatever they're going to do. And for me, what the puppy testing is about is it helps me set my training guidelines for how I'm going to approach training with this puppy. It's not just a random test that I did on a day. It gives me knowledgeable information about the genetics, the character of this puppy. And so if I get the puppy that has everything I'm looking for, then I can get started right away doing little bits of obedience, all in positive reinforcement when they're young. I can do the obedience, I can do tracking, I can do whatever. I can just go start because my puppy's already showing the strengths, and then I'm just going to assess them as they go. If I am, let's just say I'm talking as a breeder. I don't breed a lot, but I breed some. And let's just say I decide this family would like this, they're going to take a particular puppy, and I'm going to tell them, hey, that puppy has a really nice dependent streak, go home, still do obedience, but this should be a pretty easy puppy. But maybe they're going to take a puppy that has that nice blend. They're really attracted to that. They have some experience. And I'm like, okay, cool, take that puppy. But here's the deal. You need to get started a little earlier with your obedience. You need to make sure you're starting from the ground up, because if that puppy just goes and you get too busy and the puppy's hanging out by themselves a lot, that blend, that independent side is going to come stronger. It's going to be what's developed in that puppy, and that puppy's going to be maybe a little bit too much for them when they get older. But if they stay focused on, doing obedience and doing stuff and developing that dependent side, that engaged side, that side of the puppy that really wants to engage with the person, then they're going to be just fine. They're going to be totally great. But that's not usually where we have our problems lie. Although sometimes, as a trainer, that is where we have some problems lie. Either the family gets that puppy and they don't do what they need to do, or there was no testing, the families didn't know, and they got this independent puppy, and then what ends up happening is when the puppy hits about 8 months, hopefully they hit a trainer, but some of them hit the shelter. I know, I deal with it in infinite possibilities all the time. We get so many lovely young dogs, that we're picking up at the shelter at 10 months, 11 months, 12 months. Nobody taught them any manners. Nobody taught them how to navigate their way in the world. And all they need is structure, and they're super nice dogs. But ideally, we're trying to prevent that, obviously. But I think where the biggest problem is where we have people in sports who want to do things with their dogs, and they look at the testing and they pick out the nature, and they forget to think about the nurture. They don't think about that they have influence too. They just think they're going to take the puppy they want, that test generally how they want it to be, whether it's a blend or an independent or a more dependent, and they do the same thing with every single dog they take home. they've got it. They're like, okay, I got to go to puppy socials. That's all obviously very good to do. I've got to do all these things with the puppy, and they run around and they're so busy doing all those things, they're not paying attention to whether or not they're developing the puppy they want. I'm a big believer in getting it right the first time, and I say that because I've screwed it up a lot. So at this age in my life, I'd like to get it right the first time through versus repeating the same mistakes that I made when I was younger, right? And I did all that stuff when I was younger. I got my dog, I took him all the places, and I did all the things, and then I'm like, what happened?